David Whitaker was a quiet man. He wasn't famous, rich, or anyone important in the eyes of the world. He lived in a small house at the edge of a forest town in Oregon. His life was simple. Every day he woke up early, packed lunch for his son. Noah dropped him at school, then went to work at a local auto shop. He fixed cars, changed tires, and came back home smelling like grease. But even with his tired hands and worn-out clothes, he never let Noah feel like they were missing anything. David might not have had a lot of money, but he had something even more valuable: kindness, patience, and a heart full of love for his son. Noah was 9 years old, full of questions, and always curious about the world. Their weekends were special. Every Saturday, they would pack sandwiches and juice and head into the woods to hike. David wanted to teach Noah the beauty of nature, how to read the signs of the forest, how to be calm, and how to listen. The forest was quiet, peaceful, and full of life. And it was there, deep inside those green trees, that their quiet life changed forever. It was a Saturday morning like any other. The sky was soft blue. The air smelled like pine and fresh earth, and birds chirped overhead. David and Noah were walking along a narrow trail, laughing about something silly. They had just reached a small clearing near a rocky hill when David stopped. Something didn't feel right. He noticed a faint rustling sound, not the wind, not an animal. Something softer, human. He looked to the side and saw something that made him freeze. Near a big rock, barely visible behind some bushes, were two small figures. He stepped closer, slowly, carefully, signaling Noah to stay back. As he pushed the branches aside, his heart skipped a beat. There, sitting on the ground, were two little girls. They looked like twins. Same messy blonde hair, same dirt-covered faces, same lost eyes. They were holding each other tightly, knees pulled to their chest, like they were hiding from the world. David crouched down. "Hey there, it's okay. Won't hurt you," he said gently. The girls didn't speak, they just stared. One of them had a scrape on her knee, dried blood mixed with dirt. The other looked like she hadn't eaten in days. David opened his backpack slowly and pulled out a granola bar and a bottle of water, placed them on the ground and moved back. The girls didn't move at first. But after a minute, one of them reached out and grabbed the bar. They unwrapped it together, taking small bites, still silent, still unsure. David didn't ask too many questions. He could see they were scared. But he had to do something. Pulled out his phone and called the police. While waiting, he tried asking simple things. "What are your names?" he said softly. No answer. "Are you hurt? Do you need help?" The girls just looked at him, then at each other. Finally, one of them whispered a word so quietly he almost didn't hear it. Tessa. It wasn't clear if that was one of their names or someone else's, but it was the only clue he had. When the police and child services arrived, David explained everything. They examined the girls and tried to talk to them, but the girls stayed quiet, only nodding or shaking their heads. No missing person reports matched their description. No ID, no belongings, nothing to trace where they had come from. It was like they had appeared out of nowhere. David felt a strange ache in his chest as he watched them get taken into the social worker's car. He held Noah's hand tightly. "Those girls looked so scared," Noah said quietly. David nodded. "Yeah, buddy, they did." He couldn't sleep that night. Kept thinking about the twins. Where had they come from? Why were they alone in the forest? And who was Tessa? A few days later he got a call. It was from the Child Protection Agency. They had too many kids and not enough emergency foster homes. They remembered how gentle he had been with the girls. Would he consider taking them in, just for a little while? David was shocked. He had never imagined raising more children. He already worked long hours, and life wasn't easy. But something inside him said yes before his mouth even moved. He remembered their eyes, the way they looked so lost and small. He told the agency he'd do it. And just like that, the twins came to live with him. At first, things were quiet. The girls barely spoke. They stayed close to each other, even slept in the same bed, clinging tightly like they might disappear if they let go. David didn't push them. He gave them space, cooked for them, made sure they had warm clothes, gave them stuffed animals, and painted stars on their ceiling to help them sleep. Slowly, the ice began to melt. Noah was a big help. He treated them like friends from the start. He shared his toys, told them funny stories, and invited them to play outside. The girls began to smile. The one who had said Tessa first seemed a little braver. David started calling her Lily. The quieter one became Luna. They didn't correct him. It was as if they were okay with these names, as if they were starting fresh. One morning, David found a drawing on the kitchen table. It showed a big house with tall windows. Two small girls were standing behind a window, looking out. Under the drawing, in crooked letters, one word was written: hide. His heart sank. What had these girls been through? He took the drawing to the child protection agent. "We don't have anything solid yet," she said. "We're trying, but if no one reports them missing, they'll stay in the system. Or maybe with you." David never planned for this. He never thought he'd go from one son to 3 children. But watching Lily and Luna eat breakfast, giggle at Noah's jokes, and sleep peacefully in their new beds, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Purpose. They were starting to feel like a family. Strange one, yes, but real. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing. He wouldn't let anything happen to them. Not now. Not ever. Then, one evening, something unexpected happened. A news reporter came to town, filming a story about missing kids and the lack of foster families. She visited David's home briefly, took a photo of the twins playing with Noah in the yard, and included a short clip of their faces on the local channel. It aired for just 30 seconds. Most people didn't think much of it, but someone far away did. The next day, a long black SUV pulled up outside David's house. The driver in a suit stepped out, followed by a tall woman in expensive clothes and dark sunglasses. She had sharp cheekbones, perfect hair, and an expression as cold as ice. She looked at the house like it was something she had stepped in. Then she knocked on the door. David opened it. The woman took off her sunglasses and looked past him. The moment the twins saw her, they froze. Lily's hand clutched Luna's. Both girls turned pale. The woman's voice was smooth, polished. "I believe you have my daughters," she said. David didn't understand. "Who are you?" he asked. "Their mother," she said. "Victoria Langston. I want them back." And just like that, the quiet, peaceful world David had built for Lily and Luna began to shake. Who was this woman? Why hadn't she come forward before? Why were the girls so terrified of her? Something was wrong. Deeply wrong. David could feel it in his bones. He stood tall, protecting the girls behind him. "If you are their mother," he said slowly, "then why did they run?" The woman's expression didn't change, but her voice turned cold. "That's none of your business." David's eyes narrowed. "It is now." In that moment, a simple man who worked in a garage, who once only wanted to raise his son in peace, became something more. A protector, a fighter. A father not by blood, but by love. And the real battle hadn't even started yet. David Whitaker never thought that his quiet life would turn into a storm. Just a few weeks ago, he was a single father, raising his son Noah, going to work, and enjoying peaceful walks in the forest. Now, 2 little girls Lily and Luna had come into his home, and with them, a mystery that was getting deeper with every passing day. When the woman in the black SUV stood at his doorstep and claimed she was their mother, everything changed. Her name was Victoria Langston, and she didn't come with hugs or tears. She came with cold eyes, expensive clothes, and a demand. "I want my daughters back." After that strange visit, David felt unsettled. He called the child services officer, Ms. Ramos, and told her everything. She said her name is Victoria Langston. The girls were terrified of her, he explained. Ms. Ramos promised to check into her background and told David to stay calm. But it was hard to stay calm when 2 little girls started crying every time a car slowed down outside the house. In the days that followed, Lily and Luna grew more scared. They didn't want to go to school. They didn't want to leave David's side. They started locking the bathroom door when they took a bath. One night, Luna had a nightmare and screamed so loudly that David came running. She was shaking and whispering, "Don't let her take us. Don't let her lock us up again." David held her in his arms and whispered back, No one's taking. You, not as long as I'm here. That night, David realized something. These girls didn't just need food and a roof over their heads. They needed protection, love, and someone to fight for them. They needed someone who wouldn't give up even if the person they were scared of was rich and powerful. Victoria Langston didn't show up again for a week. But when she did, it wasn't alone. This time, she brought 2 lawyers. They served David with official documents. She was claiming legal custody of the girls. The papers showed she was their biological mother. DNA reports, birth certificates, everything was there. According to the law, they were hers. But David didn't care about paperwork. He only cared about what he saw in Lily and Luna's eyes. Fear. He knew something wasn't right. If Victoria really loved them, why hadn't she reported them missing? Why had she searched for them in secret? And most of all, why did the girls look like they'd rather disappear than return to her? David sat with Miss Ramos again and showed her the papers. She sighed. Yes, she's their biological mother. But custody doesn't always go back automatically. If the environment was unsafe, if the girls ran away for a reason, we can fight it. You need a lawyer, David. A good one. David didn't have money for lawyers. He barely had enough for groceries some weeks. But the story of Lily and Luna was spreading fast in town. The local paper had written a piece about the mechanic who gave 2 lost girls a home. Strangers started showing support. People brought meals, clothes, and even toys for the girls. One woman, a retired teacher named Mrs. Clark, donated money to help him get a lawyer. Then came a miracle. A young lawyer named Hannah came to his garage one morning. I read about you, she said. I passed the bar last year and I want to help for free. David was surprised. Why would you do that? He asked. She smiled because I was a foster kid once. I know what it feels like to be unwanted. And I can see that they've finally found someone who wants them. With Hannah on their side, things started moving quickly. She filed an emergency motion in family court asking for a delay in returning the girls to Victoria. Her argument was simple. If the girls were scared of their mother, then something needed to be investigated. David started gathering evidence. He took photos of the girls playing, laughing, doing homework, proof that they were safe and thriving in his home. Teachers at their school wrote letters saying the girls had started to speak more, smile more, and learn quickly. Even Noah's teacher noticed a positive change. Your son has become more caring, she said. He always includes Lily and Luna, and he's more responsible now. One day, while sorting through old drawings Lily had made, David found something shocking. It was a picture of a room with no windows. The 2 girls were inside, and the door was locked from the outside. Above the drawing, Lily had written one sentence in shaky letters. Mom said we were bad, so we stay here. David's stomach turned, gave the drawing to Hannah, who added it to their case file. Meanwhile, Victoria wasn't staying quiet. Her legal team sent press releases claiming that David had kidnapped her daughters and was keeping them from their rightful home. They painted him as a nobody, a poor mechanic with no future. But the town didn't believe it. People had seen with their own eyes how much the girls loved David. They defended him online in community meetings, even on the radio. The town had taken a side and it wasn't Victoria's. A court hearing was finally scheduled. On the morning of the hearing, David dressed in his only suit. He held Noah's hand while Lily and Luna walked beside them, wearing matching yellow dresses. As they entered the courtroom, reporters clicked photos. David ignored them. He focused on keeping the girls calm. Victoria sat on the other side with her lawyers. She didn't even glance at the girls. It said everything inside the courtroom. The judge listened carefully. Victoria's team argued that she was wealthy, had a large house, private security, and could offer the girls a luxurious life. David's side argued that money didn't mean Lavon's safety, didn't mean golden cages. Then the judge asked the most important question. Do the girls wish to return to their biological mother? The courtroom fell silent. The child advocate, a soft-spoken woman who had interviewed the girls, stood up. They don't, she said clearly. They are afraid of her. They don't feel safe with her. They want to stay with Mr. Whitaker. Victoria's face turned hard. She stood up and shouted, They're just children. They don't know what's good for them. But the judge banged the gavel and ordered her to sit down. Later, the judge ordered a full investigation into Victoria's parenting. Until then, David was allowed to keep custody. Back at home, David sat on the couch, tired but relieved. The girls ran to him, hugging him tightly. Noah joined in. It was the first time David truly felt like they were one family. Different, unexpected, but real. That night, Lily whispered something for the first time. "Can we call you Dad?" David's eyes filled with tears. He didn't answer right away. He just nodded and pulled them closer. As he lay in bed later, his heart felt heavy and full at the same time. He didn't know what would happen next. Maybe Victoria would come back stronger. Maybe the court would take them away. Maybe more secrets would be uncovered. But for now, in that small house filled with hope, laughter, and healing, David knew he would fight with everything he had, because those two little girls had walked out of the woods and into his life. And he wasn't going to let anyone take them away again without a fight. David's life had already changed so much, from being a quiet single father raising his son Noah, to becoming a temporary guardian of two scared little girls found in the woods. Everything had turned upside down. But now, as the custody battle with Victoria Langston grew more serious, David realized the fight was only just beginning. The court had allowed the girls to stay with him for now, but the pressure was building. Victoria wasn't backing down. She had wealth, power, lawyers, and a name that carried weight. David had only his heart, his honesty, and the truth he believed the girls were too afraid to speak. Every day, he watched over Lily and Luna like a guardian angel. The girls had started opening up, but there were still shadows in their eyes. They laughed more, played more, and even started sleeping through the night, but there was a fear that never fully left them. David knew something had happened to them, something that left deep scars. But he didn't want to force them. He wanted them to heal in their own time. One afternoon, Luna asked David a strange question. "Wait, why do rich people keep secrets in? Big houses?" It caught him off guard. He gently asked why she was thinking about that. Luna just looked at him, wide-eyed, and whispered, "Because Mommy's house had locked doors and scary rooms." David's heart clenched. He didn't say anything more. But he knew, deep down, the truth was bigger and darker than he had imagined. Hannah, David's young lawyer, had been doing her own digging. She was smart, brave, and determined to find out what kind of life Victoria had really given the girls. She looked into court records and discovered something strange. Years ago, Victoria had been in a brutal custody battle with her ex-husband, Julian Maddox. He had fought hard for shared custody of the girls, claiming that Victoria was controlling, cold, and emotionally unstable. But because he wasn't as rich or famous as she was, the court had leaned in her favor. Shortly after the court ruling, Julian had moved to a private cabin far from the city. No one had heard much from him since. David listened quietly as Hannah explained this. Julian disappeared a year ago. His death was reported as an accident. But I found no police reports, no obituaries. Just a short mention in a small paper. Man found dead on property. No foul play suspected. That's it. Something about that felt wrong to David. So he dies and then the girls go missing? He asked slowly. Hannah nodded. Exactly. The timeline doesn't make sense. If she cared so much, why didn't she report the girls missing? It was a question no one could answer. Meanwhile, Victoria was growing more aggressive. She sent private investigators to follow David. One even pretended to be a delivery man, trying to get pictures of the girls. David filed a complaint with the court. Victoria's lawyers denied everything, but it didn't stop her tactics. 1. Evening, as David was fixing dinner, Lily approached him with something in her hand. It was an old locket. "Mommy gave this to us when we were small," she said. "But she said we could only wear it when we were quiet. If we made noise, she took it away." David opened the locket and found two tiny photos inside, one of Victoria and one of a man with kind eyes. "That's Daddy Julian," Lily said. David looked at the picture and felt something twist in his chest. The girls had been hiding memories, trying to protect themselves. And now, piece by piece, they were giving him their truth. That night, He sat down with Noah, Lily, and Luna. He didn't want to scare them, but he needed to be honest. "Someone is trying to take you away," he said gently. "And I'm doing everything I can to stop that, but I need your help. I need you to be brave and tell me if anything bad ever happened in the past. Anything you remember. You don't have to say it now. Just know that I will always believe you." The girls didn't speak right away, but a few nights later, Luna came into his room crying. She climbed into bed beside him and whispered things that no child should ever have to say. She talked about a room with no lights, about being left alone for hours, about Victoria yelling and blaming them for things they didn't understand, about Julian trying to protect them, then one day disappearing and never coming back. David listened without speaking, just held her and wiped her tears. When she finished, he promised her, "You're safe now. I'm not going to let her hurt you again." The next day, Hannah met with the girl's child advocate and shared what Luna had said. The advocate believed them. She had already seen signs of trauma in both girls. With this new information, the court allowed an official investigation into Victoria's parenting history. Finally, some real light was being shined on the truth. But Victoria wasn't done. A few days later, David came home to find an envelope on his doorstep. Inside was a letter and a blank check. The note was short and cold. "Name your price." Away. David stared at the check. There was no limit. She was offering him money to disappear, to give up the girls, to walk away from the children who had started calling him Dad. He tore the check in half and threw it in the trash. But that act meant something else. This was no longer just about custody. It was about power. Victoria was used to buying silence. But David wouldn't be bought. Then something happened that turned everything upside down. Former employee of Victoria, a woman named Marissa, who had worked as a housekeeper for several years, contacted Hannah. She had seen the news and read the articles about David, and she had something to say. Marissa agreed to meet in private. She was nervous, scared even. But when she began to talk, the truth spilled out like water from a broken dam. She told them that Victoria never wanted the children. She only fought for custody out of pride, not love. That the girls were kept in separate rooms rarely, allowed to play outside and punished harshly for small things like making noise or laughing too loudly. She said Julian had once threatened to go public with evidence, but after a big fight between them, he moved out and was never heard from again. David asked her the one question he had been afraid to ask. "Do you think Victoria hurt him, Marissa?" Looked down. "I don't know, but I think she was capable of it." They recorded the conversation. Hannah submitted it to the court. It was the biggest break in the case yet. Now, the story was no longer just about who had the legal right to the girls. It was about what kind of mother Victoria really was, whether she had covered up something darker than anyone had guessed. The judge ordered Victoria to appear for a psychological evaluation and to submit to a formal child welfare investigation. Her lawyers tried to delay it, but the public pressure was rising. Reporters were now asking serious questions. Victoria's perfect image was starting to crack. Back at home, David continued to be the father the girls had never truly had. He took them to the park, helped them with homework, and tucked them in with bedtime stories. They laughed more now. They started calling him Dad like it was the most natural word in the world. Even Noah had grown protective. He no longer called them the twins. He called them my sisters. One night, as they sat on the porch watching the stars, Lily said something that made David's heart swell. "I don't remember much about my old house," she whispered, "but I remember being scared. Here, I only remember being happy." David didn't say anything. He just pulled her close and let the moment speak for itself. Then the call came. The court date for the final hearing had been set. Everything would come down to that day. David knew the road ahead would be hard. Victoria would fight with everything she had, but so would he. Because this wasn't just a legal battle anymore. It was a battle between fear and love, between power and protection, between a cold house and a warm home. He wasn't just fighting. For the girls, he was fighting for their right to be children again. David stood in the middle of the living room, holding a small pair of pink shoes in his hand. They belonged to Lily. She had left them near the door after coming back from school, something she always forgot to do. He smiled softly. For a man who once lived alone with just his son, this kind of mess used to be annoying. But now it brought him peace. These little signs, the shoes, the crayons scattered on the floor, the empty juice boxes meant the girls felt safe here. They felt like this house was home, but that peace was under threat. The court had scheduled the final custody hearing. Victoria Langston, the girl's biological mother and a millionaire CEO, was coming with her army of lawyers to take Lily and Luna back. David knew she wouldn't give up easily. She was used to getting what she wanted. He also knew that she didn't love them. Not truly. If she did, they wouldn't have run away. They wouldn't have hidden in the woods like scared animals. They wouldn't wake up crying from nightmares about a woman who was supposed to care for them. The days leading to the court hearing were tense. The girls could feel something was happening. David tried to act normal, keeping their routines the same, smiling and making pancakes on Sundays, but they sensed his worry. Lily became quieter, and Luna clung to his arm more often. Noah tried to cheer them up with jokes, cartoons, and puppet shows using socks, but the laughter never lasted long. One night, as he tucked them into bed, Lily asked in a soft voice, "Do we have to leave, Dad?" David swallowed hard. He couldn't lie to them. "I'm doing everything I can so you can stay," he said, "but the judge has to decide." "What if she says we have to go?" Luna whispered. "Then I'll still find a way to keep you safe," he promised. The morning of the hearing arrived like a heavy storm. David wore the same suit he had worn to his first custody meeting. It was slightly tighter now. The seams pulled a little when he moved, but it still felt like armor. He helped Lily and Luna into their dresses, braided their hair, and told them how brave they were. Noah was there too, dressed in his best clothes, holding their hands as they walked into the courthouse together. Reporters were outside, their cameras clicking, their voices asking questions. David ignored. He wasn't here for attention. He was here for his family. Inside the courtroom, Victoria sat confidently at her table. Her black dress was sharp, her heels loud on the floor, and her lips pressed into a thin smile. She didn't look at the girls. She didn't wave, smile, or offer a hand. She only stared at the judge, like she was in a business meeting. The courtroom filled quickly. Community members who had heard about the story came to watch. Teachers from the girls' school neighbors. Even the woman from the grocery store who always gave them free lollipops, they all sat quietly, their eyes full of hope and concern. The judge, a kind-faced woman with silver hair, entered and everyone stood. Then the hearing began. Victoria's lawyers spoke first. They showed her wealth, her big house, her security systems, private schools, and her ability to give the girls everything they could ever need. They said David was a mechanic, a single father, not financially strong, and not legally connected. To the children, he is not their biological parent, one lawyer said firmly. He has no right to keep them from their mother. Then it was Hannah's turn. She stood calmly, her voice clear and full of purpose. She didn't attack Victoria. Instead, she painted a picture of two little girls who had finally found safety. She showed photos of the girls smiling in David's home, videos of them singing with Noah, letters from teachers saying how much they had improved, and reports from the child therapist who explained the fear they had about returning to Victoria. Then came the most powerful part, the witnesses. First was Mrs. Clark, the retired teacher. She spoke about how the girls had opened up in the community, and how David treated them like his own daughters. Next came the grocery store owner, who shared how David never let the girls go hungry, even when he couldn't afford much. Then came Marissa, the former housekeeper. The courtroom went silent. As she entered, she sat nervously, but looked straight ahead. "I worked for Victoria Langston for almost 5 years," she said. "I saw the girls almost every day. They weren't allowed to go outside much. They were locked in rooms for being too loud or too curious. There was no warmth in that house, just control." Victoria's lawyer stood up. "You were fired from that job, weren't you?" "Yes," Marissa said. Gosh, too many questions. That silence returned again. The judge thanked her and asked if she had ever seen the girls being physically harmed. "No," she said, "but emotional harm leaves scars too." Then the judge turned to the child therapist, who explained how trauma had affected the girls She said they feared returning to Victoria's home and had shown signs of improvement only after staying with David. Finally, the judge asked if the girls themselves would speak. Lily and Luna were sitting quietly with their child advocate. After a gentle conversation, both girls agreed. They walked to the witness stand, holding each other's hands tightly. Lily spoke first. "We were scared at Mommy's house. We weren't allowed to play. We had to stay quiet all the time." "Did your mother ever hurt you?" the judge asked gently. Lily shook her head, not with hands. "She made us feel like we were nothing." Then Luna spoke, her voice trembling. "Daddy Julian was nice. He read to us. But one day he left and never came back. Mommy got worse. After that, we ran away because we didn't want to disappear like him." The judge looked at them carefully. "Do you want to go back to your mother's house?" Both girls said, "No." "What do you want?" Lily turned to David, who was sitting still, trying not to cry. "We want to stay with Dad."
Dad.
When they stepped down, David opened his arms and they ran to him. Victoria stood up sharply. "They're children. They don't know what's best." "For them," the judge raised her hand. "Enough." After a long pause, the judge spoke. "This case is not about money. It is about safety, love, and what these children need to thrive. It is clear to this court that David Whitaker has provided a home filled with care and stability. The girls feel safe with him, and their progress speaks louder than any bank account." She turned to Victoria. "Ms. Langston, your wealth cannot cover the emotional damage these children have described. Till further evaluation and court-approved therapy, your visitation rights are suspended." Then she looked at David. "Mr. Whitaker, you are granted full legal guardianship of Lily and Luna, effective immediately." The courtroom burst into quiet applause. Victoria stormed out, her heels echoing loudly on the marble floor. David sat, there frozen. Then Lily touched his arm. "Dad, does this mean we're staying?" He looked at her and smiled with tears in his eyes. "Yes, sweetheart, you're staying." Outside the courtroom, the community waited. When David and the kids walked out, people clapped, some cried, others hugged him. He was no longer just the quiet mechanic who once found two lost girls. He was now a hero to everyone who had ever believed in love over money, heart over power. Back at home, the air felt lighter. The girls danced in the living room. Noah jumped on the couch and declared, "This house has officially upgraded to awesome." David laughed and joined them. They ate spaghetti for dinner, had chocolate ice cream, and stayed up watching cartoons. No lawyers, no cameras, no fear, just family. That night, as he turned off the lights, David stood at the door of the girls' room. They were already asleep. Holding hands as they always did, he whispered a quiet promise into the darkness. "I'll never let you go." Because in the end, it wasn't blood that made them a family. It was love. The days after the court victory felt like sunlight breaking through dark clouds. David, who once thought his life would always be simple and quiet, was now the legal guardian of two little girls who had completely changed his world. Lily and Luna no longer had to look over their shoulders. The fear that had lived in their hearts for so long had finally begun to melt away. There was no longer the threat of being taken away. No more lawyers or courtrooms or scary visits. They were home. They were safe. They were free to just be children again. That first weekend after the hearing, David let the kids plan the day. Noah, full of energy and ideas, suggested a picnic in the park with kites, sandwiches, and ice cream. Lily wanted to bring her sketchbook and crayons, and Luna said she wanted to fly as high as the clouds. They laughed and packed a basket together, filling it with peanut butter sandwiches, cookies, apples, and juice boxes. David even dusted off his old kite from the garage. At the park, they ran across the green field like a small gang of joy. Watch them, the kite flying above them in the sky, their laughter filling the air like music. He sat on the blanket with a cup of coffee and couldn't stop smiling. For the first time in a long time, everything felt right. Later that evening, after they returned home, David found something on the porch. It was a small envelope. His heart jumped for a moment. Was it more legal trouble? Was Victoria trying something again? He opened it carefully. Inside was a letter. The handwriting was elegant and controlled. It was from Victoria. "David, you won. I still don't fully understand how or why you were able to turn everyone against me. But I suppose it doesn't matter now. I never wanted to be a mother. What? Was my mistake. But I did want to win. That was always the only thing that mattered to me. I see now that you care for them in a way I never could. I didn't grow up with love. I only learned how to control, succeed, and survive. This is not an apology. I'm not asking for forgiveness, but I am letting go. Enclosed is something for the girls. Use it however you wish. Victoria Langston David checked the envelope again. Inside was a paper for a bank account too, actually one for Lily, and one for Luna. Each account had a trust fund set up in their names. The amount made David sit down on the steps in shock. It was more money than he had ever seen in his entire life, enough to pay for their education, their future, and more. He didn't know what to think at first. Part of him wanted to rip the papers apart, but he took a deep breath. Maybe this was her way of letting go. Maybe she really meant it. Maybe it was the only way she knew how to say sorry. David didn't mention the letter to the girls. Not yet. They didn't need anything. From Victoria, what they needed was time, stability, and a life where they could grow. Days turned into weeks, and things slowly settled into a new rhythm. School started again, and Lily began drawing more pictures of happy houses, big trees, and families, holding hands. Una discovered a love for music and joined a small after-school club where she learned to play the piano.
Oh.
Noah continued being the best big brother anyone could ask for. He helped with homework, walked them to school, and always made them laugh when they were sad. David fixed cars during the day, came home in the evening, and helped the kids with dinner and bedtime. Some nights were still hard. Luna had nightmares. Sometimes, Lily would cry when it rained too hard, remembering the night they ran away. But David was always there, sitting by their side, holding their hands until they fell back asleep. One afternoon, the girls came running into the garage with big grins on their faces. "Dad, guess what?" Lily shouted. "We're going to be in the school play," Luna added, hopping up and down. David laughed. "Really? What parts did you get?" "I'm a tree," Lily said proudly. "And I'm a squirrel." Luna beamed. David chuckled. "The most beautiful tree and squirrel I've ever seen?" It may not sound like much to others, but to David, it was everything. These were girls who once didn't speak, didn't smile, and were afraid of their own shadows. Now they were acting, singing, and living like kids should. Weeks later, during the school play, David sat in the front row with Noah beside him, holding a homemade sign that read, "Go Lily and Luna." The moment the girls stepped on stage, David felt tears in his eyes. It's not because of the costumes or the lights, but because they were standing up there proudly, confident and shining. After the show, he hugged them both tightly. "I'm so proud of you," he whispered. That night, he took them out for ice cream. As they sat at the little table, licking cones and laughing at Noah's silly impressions of squirrels, David looked around and realized something deep in his heart. He hadn't just saved these girls, they had saved him too. For years, he had gone through life quietly, working, caring for Noah, doing his best. But there had always been a part of him that felt empty, like something was missing. Now, that space was full. Full of drawings taped to the fridge, full of piano music drifting through the hall, of shoes by the door and toys on the couch, full of love. One evening, Lily came to him with a piece of paper. It was a drawing of their family. David, Noah, Lily, and Luna holding hands. Under a bright sun, she had written above it in large, careful letters, "Our family." David framed it and hung it in the hallway. As months passed, life continued. David opened a savings account using the money from the trust fund, but left it untouched. He wanted the girls to have it when they were older. Taught them how to ride bikes, how to read maps, and how to make pancakes without burning them. Every Sunday became Adventure Day, where they explored new parks, new books, and even new hobbies. One day they visited a nearby lake. The girls ran barefoot through the water, splashing and giggling. David sat on a rock watching them. A man nearby, fishing with his own daughter, looked over and said, "You've got your hands full." David smiled. Yeah, and my heart too. Years later, people would still talk about the story, about how a single father found two lost girls in the woods and ended up giving them the home they never had. About how money, fame, and power couldn't beat the love of a good man who refused to walk away. About how family isn't always something you're born into, but something you choose, protect, and grow. And when the girls would grow up, when they'd look back at their childhood, they wouldn't remember the fear or the pain as much. They'd remember the man who taught them how to be brave, who held their hands in court, who read them bedtime stories, who showed them what love really looked like. They'd remember David Whitaker, the man who became their dad, the man who found them, not just in the forest, but in the broken pieces of their lives, and gave them everything they needed to bloom. He found two lost little girls hiding in the woods. He had no idea they would lead him into a battle against a millionaire mother, turn him into the father they never had.